that, there's a lot of trolls and a lot of people that don't want to identify themselves and things like that. And actually, I'm going to try my best to ignore people like that in the comments, because people say a lot of things. There's bots and there's trolls, and you don't know where these people are from. Likely many of them are not American citizens, but they want to create a race riot in the US. They want to create divisions. So they mask themselves and say things that you might think that they could be American. Like, one of the comments that was made to me was, you're white or something like that. And obviously, people can see what I look like. Whatever you think, I have to deal with what I physically appear when it comes to racism, right? So, I just wanted to say that I'm going to do my best to ignore these kind of comments, because they're not really to get at me. They're to create divisions among people. And so I wanted to apologize to that, because I actually hate racist and I hate racism, because racism holds down good people. It holds down, indeed, the United States from being a great country. I mean, that is the one thing that has definitely held down the U.S. for a very long time. This kind of division based on people that are racist. So some of the times, even the foreign trolls try to jump on that. But in any case, I'm back again. This is about ICE, and I'm going to go over some of the judgments, just some quick things about some of the judgments made about ICE. But first, I want y'all to listen to this, because when I'm talking about ICE, we're talking about American citizens being detained. And when I go like this, I'm saying no American citizen, for any reason whatsoever, for any reason, should be detained by ICE, let alone be sent to a detention center. They have all the money in the world and they have all the power in the world. They have the strongest uh, structure on earth, the military, more money than any other government on earth, to find out who is who. And there should never be one mistake about who is American. They can find out who American is before they even put you in a vehicle to move you anywhere. Okay. And just keep that in mind. They can do all that if they wanted to. So anything they do to an American citizen, they did it with malice, knowing that this American citizen, when put in detention, could die in detention. They're not stupid. And if they are stupid, then hey, you got to deal with the consequences yourself. No American should have to deal with stupid, backed up by any taxpayer dollars. Federal dollars, the funds that ICE use, are given through payroll taxes. 70%, over 70% of the US federal budget is regular, everyday American citizens that are just trying to survive. Okay, so they're using those people's tax money to put them in situations where they could die just based on something like identification, when they have more access to anything to get someone's identification, while when they're actually having dual citizens working in ICE, while they're having first generation people working in ICE. Yes, they do. And not only that, across the federal government, in Trump's cabinet, one American citizen being detained is enough for people to know you have crossed the line. Now, and it's happening to all types, but I want y'all to listen to this, because if you're an American citizen, this can be you. Just take a listen.
Welcome back to the Weekend Crime Time.
I hope y'all can hear this.
Tonight, we are getting a first-hand account of the conditions inside the controversial immigration detention center in the Florida Everglades. That's been dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Today, a group of Democratic lawmakers were given what they called a sanitized tour of the facility, which they compared to an, quote,
can y'all hear this?
internment camp. It comes as major questions are being raised about the safety and the conditions inside, including a report in the Associated Press that there are worms in the food and wastewater on the floor.
Worms in the food and wastewater on the floor.
Members Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Maxwell Frost were two of the lawmakers who.
Now, hold on.
Welcome back.
Now they say They say, I'm gonna let it play. Now they say
Folks,
the ones who witnessed this, right? They say that there was people in there that said they were American citizens. Secondly, they said that there's 30 people in each cell. We're not talking about the whole prison. We're talking about each holding cell. 30 people in each holding cell, one toilet. The drinking water is the toilet water. When they opened the doors to the facility, they could feel the heat come out like a hot box. What's up, David? I feel you, bro. Long time no see. They could feel this. Now, let me play it again. Let me just play this again. These are congressional members that went by there. I'm going to turn it back up.
Schultz and Maxwell Frost were two of the lawmakers who were able to go inside. Here's what they had to say after.
The conditions that we saw inside this internment camp, which it is nothing less than that description, were really appalling.
We saw humans being held in cages. You heard it from Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, 32 people per cage, 3 toilets in each cage for these 32 people, and their drinking water comes from the toilet.
And joining us now is Florida
Okay, 3 toilets. I didn't hear that before, but 3 toilets, 32 people. Drinking water comes from the toilets. Maggots coming out of the food. And again, see, this is the thing about it. United States citizens are armed to the T and can very quickly, the ones who are not armed to the T, become armed to the T. If you don't want that happening very quickly, you might want to follow some court orders for your safety. And indeed, if I was an ICE person, I would think your ass is headed for a suicide mission, because the federal government not only did not prepare you for your job, they didn't give you any decent training on the law. They didn't give you anything except just a license to go walk the street and grab whoever you personally feel in your heart looks like somebody that's not right, who you personally feel. They have 0 directives. They don't have any knowledge of who might be in the area. It's not like somebody checked tax records from companies' payouts, who the companies paid, and said, these payouts look interesting. This goes from month after month. I wonder who that's going to. Let's go see. They're not going to corporations looking to see who they're paying. They're not going to companies and looking to see who they're paying. They're not checking the resident stuff. They're not checking anything like that. They're wandering the streets. Wandering the streets. If you don't think that's a recipe for disaster while being masked, you a goddamn fool. And if you so happen to get your ass shot, that's on your ass. Okay, don't play stupid. But in any case, as of now, there is no single federal law that explicitly prohibits ICE agents from wearing masks. But check this out. This is crazy. Although there's no law that prohibits it, there's no law that says they can. Now check this out. There's no law. This is insane. This is insane. Hold on, let me go to it. As of July 2025, when we talk about constitutional law, Congress has not granted U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agents the legal authority to wear masks or cover their faces during enforcement operations. In fact, several legislative efforts are actively seeking to prohibit it. Right. So this is a gray area. You got to understand. This is what's called a gray area in the law. Right. It's not a clear legal thing. It's not clear. So if mistaken to be a kidnapper or mercenaries attacking the United States of America, if mistaken, you see, I mean, hey, it's all at your own risk if that's what you want. But trust me, if you have people like me outside the US on the internet talking about this stuff, you could be damn sure there's loads in the US talking about this already. And some of them are in here, but I can't read all the messages. I can't read all the messages, right? And I'm going to try my best to only address people that I know are real people, or at least seem like they're making real comments and not bots. Because that's what we deal with a lot of days, is these foreign agents and secretive people pretending to be somebody who they're not really, trying to make Americans kill each other. Okay, so here it is, because we know we're under attack anyway. So here it is. However, although there's no law saying they can wear masks and there's no law prohibiting it, however, multiple court rulings, agencies, policies, and constitutional protections impose limits on how ICE may conduct raids, especially when it comes to entering homes on private property, homes or private property, detaining individuals without probable cause, racial being a racist and saying, hey, that guy looks this way, that's not probable cause. You don't have any right to approach a person because of their language, because of their color, because of their religion, because of their sexual orientation, anything outlined in the anti-discrimination paragraphs in the U.S. Constitution. Um, conducting arrest in courthouses, you may not. Using force or intimidation. Using force or intimidation. Okay. Below is a summary of what ICE is legally expected to do to comply with constitutional standards, relevant court rulings. Now, your right to bear arms is in the Constitution. So we're talking about the same law that ICE must follow to be legal. And if you're not following the law, any American has the right to protect themselves and their property from people committing crimes, people operating outside of the law, even if the person claims to be something. If they're not following the law, ICE must comply with the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. ICE agents must present a judicial warning signed by a judge to enter a private home without consent. Administrative warrants, form I-200 or I-205, do not grant entry to private property without permission. Respect knock and talk standards. If they do not have a judicial warrant, they may knock and request entry, but cannot enter without voluntary consent. So what that basically means is don't answer the goddamn door. For a lot of people, that just means don't answer the door, or go to the door and say, I do not give consent. Where's your warrant? I do not give consent. Even if they, this is the tricky drown, because they might even lie to you and say, we have a warrant. Let's find out if they have cases where that happened. Okay. Relevant case law to that. United States versus Oliveras, Rangel, 2008, 10th Circuit. Evidence suppressed because ICE entered a residence without a judicial warrant or valid consent. You see what I'm saying? These are things on record in the law. Lopez Flores versus DHS. Sorry about that. That was the phone. I'm going to get to that. Lopez Flores, court emphasized that ICE agents must not misrepresent their authority when seeking entry. So if you misrepresent your authority, you could be a victim of a citizen or individual protecting their home and their life. Understand that, ICE. Understand that, and understand that more people are going to start becoming aware of this, because y'all just sprang this shit on everybody from one day to the next, right? This is not congressional. You see what's going on. While no federal statute currently forces, hold on 2 seconds. I just have to apply to my daughter real quick here. Okay. Give me. Yeah. There we go. Okay. While no federal statute currently forces ICE agents to display names or badge numbers during operations, constitutional norms and civil rights protections mean agents may not impersonate police or other authorities. Agents cannot deliberately hide their identity in ways that would prevent individuals from knowing who is detaining them. Misrepresentation or coercion may void consent. That means not having a warrant, saying you having a warrant, voids consent. Claiming that you're anything else that you are not voids any consent you could have even said that you got, even if you didn't get the consent and you just lied. Yeah. Misrepresentation, coercion may void consent for entry or arrest, leading to suppression of evidence or civil liability. So sue the hell out of ICE. People need to sue the hell out, because obviously Trump don't give a damn how much money citizens make off of suing ICE, because they're not giving them any real guidance on how to go about this. There's nothing comprehensive. They just roam in the street. If they just happen to run into somebody, hey, look at this one. Let's stop this one. Legal precedents. Why they can't do that? Bumper versus North Carolina, 1968. Consent to search is invalid if obtaining through deception or misrepresentation of legal authority. Mueller versus Mina, 2005. Law enforcement must identify themselves and justify detention, especially during non-criminal immigration enforcement. 3. ICE cannot arrest individuals based solely on race or appearance. ICE must have reasonable suspicion or probable cause tied to specific immigration violations. I mean, people read English, so this only means one thing. Reasonable suspicion or probable cause tied to specific immigration violations. If you have not violated something, if they don't know that you already violated something specific, they can't even stop you. They can't even ask you. They can't. And guess what? If you just so happen to get shot because you did, boo-hoo. Related guidance. ICE's own 2011 Sensitive Locations Memo cautions against enforcement in hospitals, schools, places of worship, and protests without supervisor approval. That means the supervisor, someone you can sue, somebody that's not hiding their mask, hopefully, or hiding their face, hopefully, but somebody you could sue, right? If they do. 4, ICE may not conduct raids at courthouses without state-specific limitations. Many states like California, New York, and Washington have passed laws requiring ICE to have judicial warrant to make arrests at courthouses or near judicial proceedings, even near the courthouse, right? Unless accompanied by a signed judicial warrant. So they have to have a warrant up front. ACLU has successfully sued ICE for courthouse arrest that violate state laws and chilled access to justice. 5, agents must avoid conduct that appears like kidnapping. There is no special exemption for ICE to use unmarked vehicles without identifying themselves, detain people in ways that make it impossible for bystanders to recognize them as law enforcement, right? Detain people in ways that make it impossible for bystanders to recognize them as law enforcement. That's been going on. You could get shot doing that. If agents use excessive force fail to identify themselves or detain someone without legal basis, it may violate Fourth Amendment, unlawful seizure, Fifth Amendment, due process, Federal Tort Claims Act, civil liability. Okay, now these are the summary of the ICE compliance and checklist. Requirement: entry to homes. Fourth Amendment: must have judicial warrant or voluntary consent. Identification of agents. Due process, case law should state agency affiliated and purpose. Avoiding deception or coercion. Bumper versus North Carolina, Mueller versus Mina, cannot misrepresent authority or conceal identity to gain entry. Probable cause for arrest. Fourth Amendment: must have articulate, must have articulable, articulable, articulable facts, not profiling. You cannot racially profile. You cannot discriminate. You can't just say, oh, this person looks like they're not American. Let me go after them for any reason. This person looks illegal. Has nothing to do with your look. Courthouse, and that goes beyond race. They're just calling it racial discrimination, but it means in the broader context, the macro sense of it, ethnic discrimination, other types of discrimination. Probable cause for arrest. Fourth Amendment: courthouse or sensitive site enforcement. State laws, DHS guidance may require judicial warrants, supervisory approval. Use of force, unmarked tactics. Constitution, civil law must not appear as kidnapping or impersonation. Okay, what's pending as July 25th, while not yet law, probable bills such as the Visible Act and HR 4004 would mandate visible name on badge, number during public operations. That's to keep ICE agents safe so people don't confuse who they are. So they don't think they're just being kidnapped or stopped for some wrong reason, right? So there's accountability. So there's people that look like they want to be accountable. Ban on non-medical face coverings during arrest. So they're seeking to ban all of this. Although it was never made legal in the first place, it also has not been made explicitly illegal. Federal oversight and reporting of ICE enforcement actions. Okay, so there's no federal oversight and reporting on ICE enforcement and actions. This ain't nothing but a mess, designed to be a mess. Yeah, I can see there's a lot of things here. Like I could see there's people, all right, bro, you've done. Yeah, look at this. Mountain, they've identified you as a bot, Mountain. You know, YouTube is really stepping up on this stuff. Right, here we go. And yeah, so we know mountain bike is just look, mountain bike addict. Well, let the illegal immigrants live with you. That's so funny. But listen, you know, you have to be able to identify them. And if there are illegal immigrants living among you, you should be able to identify them. You shouldn't be having any mistake with locking up citizens. Citizens are not illegals. You see, and that's the thing about it. If you take your time and do things in a proper manner, like you want to get the job done correctly, or you even want to get the job done, you would actually look into those things. But the truth is that the Trump administration, they don't even want comprehensive immigration reform. They just want to terrorize people and scare people, and they want to destroy the U.S. economy, right? They want to make Americans hated by their own neighbors, like he's doing with Canada, like he's doing with Mexico. They want to give the wealthy people all the money, right? And they want to take away any social programs that taxpayers have already paid for in advance. You see, keep in mind, Medicare and all that stuff is not free. People still got to pay deductibles in a lot of cases. People have to do all of this stuff. And keep in mind, the U.S. is the richest country on earth. Yet, out of all the other Western nations, is the only one that doesn't seem to keep as much money in its own citizens' pockets as the other Western nations that have free education, free higher education, universal health care, housing insurance, things like that, comprehensive housing insurance. And it's really sad. And I feel sorry for you Americans that don't really know the world you live in, don't even know what rights people have in Canada, don't even know what rights people have in the countries your president is attacking. Because it would behoove you to know that they're living better lives than you. It would behoove you to know that they keep more money in their pocket while having universal health care. They actually do. While having free higher education, they actually do. And guess what? They migrate to the US and take high level jobs. Why? Because the United States doesn't have free higher education. They just don't. You can't even get in there. You see what I mean? While they're importing people, just like Trump told you, to do jobs in tech field, things like that, things that MAGA people are upset with, or they said they were upset with, but then Trump backstabbed them, right? So all those things could be resolved with proper education. So I feel sorry for a lot of Americans, and even some of you MAGA people. A lot of you MAGA people, I know it's just your stupidity. You don't even know the country you live in. You don't even know the history of your own country. I mean, no one could slap you better in the face than yourselves. Like, no one has hurt you more than Trump has, just in one major swipe. Trump is hurting you more than anybody else. And you have to understand, an intelligent person knows that that's lack of education, lack of awareness. And that's sad. That's the way it is. But even you deserve better. Even you deserve better. You MAGA people deserve better, man. And I guess that's what is going on right now. MAGA people scared, and MAGA people angry at Trump because he won't release the Epstein files. But everyone knew why you don't release the Epstein files. Nobody with a brain thought Trump would. Epstein's his damn neighbor. He's in pictures with Epstein, with little girls. I mean, why would he release documents about himself? That's just ridiculous. But let's hear more about this.
Maxwell Frost, one of the lawmakers you just heard from there. Congressman Frost, thank you for joining us this evening. First, I want you to paint a picture for us of what it was like inside this facility, the sights, the sounds, the smells. But also, given that Democrats are describing this as a sanitized tour, what do you think happened in the days, the hours leading up to the moment at which you got access to the site?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. I mean, this was a very heartbreaking and emotionally draining day.
This is not me talking. This is MSNBC. This is Americans inside of the U.S. talking. But you probably call them nonsense. Of course, everything I said is verbatim from Americans inside of the U.S. You might call it nonsense. I'm not surprised you call it nonsense because, look, you just witnessed people in Texas get rolled over by water like they've never been rolled over before, just due to incompetence of red states. So I'm not surprised you wouldn't know where this information is coming from. I'm sharing. It's coming from inside the U.S. on your own TV from your own congressional members.
Seeing other humans being held in cages, 32 people per cage, only 3 toilets per cage. When they opened that door, and they didn't let us fully in, but they let us just stand at the door. I heard people yelling for help. In the background, I heard one gentleman yell, "I'm a U.S. citizen." I heard people begging for us to contact their family. Someone said, "Please get my mom, tell her I'm okay." And then at the end, while we were walking out, they all started chanting, "Libertad, libertad, freedom, freedom." And when I was looking at those cages, I saw myself. I saw people my age, people who looked exactly like me. And so I'm ashamed as a Floridian, and every Floridian should be ashamed that our taxpayer dollars are being used to create this internment camp for immigrants. What were the sites? What were the fields where it was incredibly hot? I mean, when we walked into that and we saw the gentlemen in the cages, they were sweating. You could tell there was the smell in the air of so many people being pushed together like that. There were so many mosquitoes and bugs, and people talk a lot about the gators here, but sometimes the deadliest thing you can encounter in Florida is actually a mosquito carrying some sort of sickness or something like.
All right, so that's being reported in the U.S. news. You have to kind of be blind to not have heard that story. I mean, I'm outside of the U.S., although I'm an American citizen, and I've still heard this story. So word travels far. If you haven't heard these stories, basically you don't have you don't follow multiple different news outlets. Even this guy, even these right wingers are talking about this stuff. I mean, MAGA folk are talking about it. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that's just what's going on in the US, and that's what most Americans didn't vote for.
Joining me now,
But
Justin Wolfers, professor of economics and public policy.
but that's what you get. That's what you get, even though you didn't vote for it. You voted for a lot of things in the U.S., and I guess you voted for the 80 people, the richest people in the country, to get another tax break. Maybe that's what you voted for. Maybe you voted for dual citizens running around in ICE looking after illegal immigrants. Maybe that's what you voted for. Maybe you voted for people to be like Mark Rubio, one generation in the country, not like me. My family comes back on both sides from the beginning of the country. But maybe you trust Marco Rubio, whose family just came yesterday. Maybe you do. Maybe you trust Trump, who's he's a second generation. What? Let me see here. Is Trump an immigrant? Let's see here. Is Trump an immigrant? Maybe MAGA voted for this. His mother, Mary Ann, was born in Scotland and migrated to the U.S. in 1930. She became a U.S. citizen later. Maybe that's what you voted for. His paternal grandfather, Frederick Trump, was born in Germany, then the Kingdom of Bavaria, and immigrated to the U.S. in 1885. That's not my kind of American. That's not my kind of American. Yeah, so that person probably doesn't know American values too well, unless chasing little girls around and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein is like what you call American values. Maybe you do. Maybe you chase little girls around. I don't know. Maybe that's okay. But but this is the best you got. This is what you got. Now, there's a lot of Americans that live outside of the U.S. for different reasons. They're in the military. Some of you MAGA people maybe don't like that. They work in American corporations that are in different countries in the world. Maybe some of you MAGA people don't like that. But the ones that do, they live in these countries and they keep more money in their pocket after taxes while their kids get paid to go to school, while they all receive universal health care, their children and them, while they all get housing insurance because it's the law. Why wouldn't you want that for yourself in the United States? I mean, I can't figure that out. How can countries like Denmark, Germany, how can these countries, many, many other countries, because it's basically standard EU law, how can they give their citizens more money to take home in their pockets with less expenses after their taxes pay for all of those things? How's that possible? And you can't do it in the US. I mean, maybe some of you don't think you deserve it. Maybe you think being American should be less than being some other Western nationality, because right now it's far less, far, far, far less. Why do you think that's right? I mean, because at the end of the day, you know, I would at least think that the amount of money you spend and the amount of money you keep in your pockets after all these other expenses, I would at least think your well-being could be measured in part by that. But it doesn't seem like Americans do that. It doesn't seem like a lot of Americans do it. And I think it's because the news media never really tells you the story about what's going on around you. It's pretty much controlled by corporate interest. And that's why you got the biggest corporate tax cut in history. They were guaranteed that because that is who is behind, legacy media, Fox, CNN. They're not really interested in knowing how much money Americans keep in their pockets after paying for education, healthcare, taxes, and housing and food. They're not interested in knowing that. That's not a headline story. They don't want to know that, and they don't want to compare that to other Western nations because it doesn't help the wealthy people get more money in their pockets. But whether you realize it or not, you are the closest thing to slaves in the Western world. You don't want money left over after you pay for your education. You don't want that. You don't vote for it. You don't want affordable housing. No, Americans don't want that. You don't want health care. No, you want your Congress people. You want to pay for and the senators. You want to pay for Trump's health care. You want to pay for your congressional members' health care, but you're not good enough for it yourself. And I think that really has something to do with just like what pride is and patriotism is for a lot of Americans. Like, it's not the same kind of pride. It's very different kind of pride, and it's really sad. It's really sad. But yeah, in any case, this is your life. You have this story. Trump is really just apparently he's raking up making things cost more money. He wasn't able to do better in Florida. I don't I don't really know what people expect. I mean, he's not really trying to release the Epstein tapes. I mean, how many people are fighting over this right now inside of MAGA? Like, what is there to hide? Think about this. If there was any Democrats on those things inside of that, wouldn't you want to know, MAGA? No, MAGA doesn't want to know. And Trump doesn't want you to know either. Trump doesn't want you to know. He decided that, he don't want to expose the Democrats, which is, don't know why he don't want to do it, but he doesn't want to do it. And I guess that's what you voted for. You voted for him to not release the Epstein tapes, and that's what you got. So be happy with what you got if that's what you think. The Americans that aren't happy with that, the Americans that don't think it's constitutional to hide your face, that don't think racial profiling is what ICE should be doing, don't be afraid to bare your arms. Bare your arms. It's legal in the United States of America, protected by the Constitution. And don't be afraid to speak your mind. It's also protected by the Constitution. And also for the 80 million Americans that don't vote, get your lazy ass out there and vote. Get your lazy ass out there and vote. Do something. Participate in democracy. Participate in it, I mean, hey, it's up to you. But I'll see you. Bye.